started your book a few days ago and I love it so much. I'm still at the beginning chapters because every time I read, I fall asleep, but it's a very nice nap. Not because I'm bored, I stop thinking, but that's what I love about reading on the couch. I anticipate napping. And the weight of the book, it's so nice. You put it on your chest and it's like a weighted blanket. It's perfect. And it's nice and soft. But yesterday I was reading the part about you started breaking down, the DSM-5. And it made me think back to when I was in medical school. So this was over 20 years ago when you go, so third year of medical school, you go through different clinical rotations. And I remember I loved all my rotations, especially the surgical rotations, because a patient comes in with an acute problem, they're bleeding, I can stop it.
Mhm.
But then I remember psychiatry was my last rotation of my third year of medical school, and I absolutely hated it. And I could not figure out why. It's just not for me. I just hated it. Like we have to memorize so much information during medical school. But when it got to memorizing things in psychiatry, it just made no sense to me because all the different categories, all the different diagnoses, there was so much overlap, like you mentioned in your book. And I'm like, this just doesn't make any intuitive sense as a human being to me. So
Mhm.
I wrote it off. I'm like, I just hate it. So anytime anyone would ask me, other medical students, and later on, I'm like, yeah, I love this and this, but I just hated psychiatry. But reading again that chapter yesterday, it just clicked. I think the reason why I just disliked it so much was because it was just so made up. Like everything was so made up, and I'm being forced to memorize all this made up BS that if you don't follow the standards of, this treatment, or, you don't diagnose it correctly, even though it sounds like this exactly like this other diagnosis, you
Mhm.
get it wrong.
Mhm.
And so I realized like I really tapped into my intuition, my spiritual wisdom, and I never knew it. Like I never knew I had it. But even in practice, even 15, 20 years later, the practice of the medical standard for treating different diagnoses, depression, everything. I mean, yeah, but when it becomes a standard where it's the first thing you have to do, a patient calls and says, I'm depressed, and you have to prescribe it to them. Otherwise, you may be neglectful. I thought I just could not do that anymore. It was just so soul draining to me. But again, that was just my wisdom telling me like there is something else. I just thought it was interesting. It just really brought me back reading that yesterday.